wanted to share about my experience learning how to throw ceramics on the wheel for my first time. It's actually not my first time because I technically learned ceramics in elementary school / middle school, I think, but who really remembers what they learned in elementary school? That was like so long ago. But before I talk about that, I'm going to give you a background on how I started getting interested in it. If you've been following along, you may have heard me talk a lot about my dad and how he's recently gotten into throwing ceramics as a new passion hobby. He took his first class in Taiwan around late last year, and when he came back, his old office space, aka my parents' living room, became his ceramic studio. And I don't go back as often as I should, so it was quite a surprise when I went back and everything was so different. He had a throw table and a kiln that he got off of Facebook Marketplace for a steal. Maybe I take after him because recently I've been finding some really cool things on Facebook Marketplace. And he also had racks filled with unfired bowls and cups. And there were so many new tools. He repurposed unused furniture from around the house to make it very functional for a studio. And it's just very amazing to see the process of someone retiring from something that they needed to do to keep supporting their entire family, to a person that has time to finally actually explore their own creativity and their passions. I think seeing this whole new person flower into their new self was quite beautiful and inspiring, to say the least. And it makes me feel even more grateful of the sacrifice it took for me to be able to live out my creative self so early on in my life because of my parents.
它很像下面那边有一边是 slanted， 一边是直的。所以这边有一边凸的比较出来，有一边没有凸那么出来。
那就只修上面就好。
I'm not gonna lie, in the past few months I've slowed down a lot on being creative with art. I had a period of time where my passion for it just wasn't as strong anymore, and I was beating myself up every day for not making art. But what was weird was that I started to have strong passions for other creative things in my life, like interior design, ceramics, terrariums, houseplants, and I think I started to even feel the passion that I saw in my dad when I started these new creative hobbies. This isn't to say that I'm giving up on art and drawing, but it just means that maybe I need to take a break to find out what other interests I have in life so that I can find my love for making art again. I learned a lot from my dad in just one lesson. I think it helped a lot to be able to see how he was working and have him talk me through the whole process.
我只会最简单的，然后揉的也不是很漂亮。就是说，这里头因为很多是 recycle 的嘛，那里头会有很多 bubble，那我们要把那个揉均匀 bubble 把它挤出来。
The first step that I learned about ceramics is that you have to knead your clay into a sheep head. And that's exactly how he said it in Mandarin. Like, you're supposed to have 2 horns.
哇，我一定揉不动的。
This process is supposed to get rid of any air bubbles that is stuck inside of the clay.
那你要这样子揉，你怎么知道什么时候揉完？
不知道，他说这样子揉像是一个羊头，羊的头啊。
拿起来，
压下去。
怎么这么硬？
不要拿整90度，拿斜斜的。
这样是对的吗？
对，就是这样子揉，就是要一直揉。
天啊，那我应该要运动多一点。
OK， 这只是把它拍圆，把它拍成一个 circle。
And when you finish that, you section it off into smaller pieces and roll them into
我
balls.
这怎么变成这样？
对，你一开始拍的时候拍那个 corner。
你怎么拍的那么快？我的手是不是？
不是，你拍的方向不对，是从这样子抬下去。
这样子？
啊，对对。所以你用压的时候不能够很用力压下去， 就是只能好像轻轻的在上面揉，就是搓汤圆一样，然后轻轻的在上面揉，然后慢慢转动。脚踏的时候就是说你踏下去，它就转。
Then it's time to center on the wheel, and you do that by like just like putting it on the wheel as centered as you can, and then you slap it really hard.
一样，对，不用那么多水，就是这样搓一搓手，就往下压，
这样子压，压下去，
就好像把它弄成一个 comb 一样的，
要很快，
先轻轻压，慢慢加力，轻轻的，因为一开始它还没粘在一起嘛。好，那如果差不多的时候，你等会转的时候，用手指头轻轻的这样压，它就会接很紧。看你哪一个手指头有力气。你看你要，对，右手要贴，这个是一定右手要贴着，因为它是这样子转，所以如果你这个手在里面，它会卡到你这个手，这样就是顺。
Next, we soften the clay by pulling it up into a like tall shape. I don't think it matters what shape it is. And then pushing it back down into a dome, and you just repeat that like maybe 3 or 4 times. And during the whole process, you add water to it so that it adds the softness to the clay so that it's easier to work with. It's actually very, very hard when you first start. My muscles were quaking.
Oh! Uh-oh!
你把它这个手这样压下去以后，到了差不多厚度，你就这样滑过来一下。
所以弄90 degree 再滑过去。
对，滑一点下来，这样就好。
And after you're done doing that, you can start forming I guess like a shorter cylinder, and you can stick your finger into the center slowly and pull outwards to start creating the inside curve of the bowl.
这样子。
这样子。
所以不用。
And this part is a little tricky because there are people that actually like measure out exactly how thick they want the edge of the bowl to be. You could do this by feeling it out yourself or just like measuring it with a tool, but I'm not professional. This is like basic ceramics. So I just kind of felt it out.
把这个边边清干净。清的时候，你就是这样子靠着，然后转一直转，这样靠着，放弃把底下擦干净。这样子然后从这上面这里往下切下去插进去。
When I first started, I was very nervous on the inside. I was very afraid to press the clay too hard, accidentally knead an air bubble into the clay, or do something to mess up how perfect the bowl would be. But the more I think about it, everything about art is always about the process. The outcome doesn't matter as much, especially when you're in the early on learning stages. And the whole point of trying something new is just to start it and to allow yourself to fail, to learn, and to grow. I was too focused on the outcome that I became a little too scared to experiment and to just have fun and learn the medium. I think it helped that my dad would reassure me and encourage me that it's fine if it didn't work out, we'll just make another one and it'll be okay.
好，这是你第一个成品。
好丑。
还没有，还要修。
还要修？
对，但是这个很难修，因为你的口是高低不平的。
And as you can see, my first one came out a little wonky. I didn't really know what was going on, but it was so fun. I didn't realize how exhausting it can be to throw clay. To be honest, it definitely felt like a whole workout, especially when you don't know exactly how much force to use or exactly how to position yourself.
刮起来，对。
My second time got better. I felt a little more comfortable and I didn't use as much energy to make the bowl. I even sneakily trimmed my bowl by myself on the day that my dad went out to go golfing because I was very impatient. So I YouTubed it and I think it worked out. He said I did a pretty good job, but I did learn how to trim afterwards from him. And that was pretty much my first trip back home. I didn't have too much time to make too many pieces. I think I only made 2, but I learned that with any new hobby, patience and dedication is very important. Nothing great comes from something that was built fast, and a very strong foundation is very important. I'm definitely excited to go back and throw some more clay in the future, or maybe try hand sculpting. That would be very fun. Ceramics has been very popular these days, and Skillshare has so many classes on beginner ceramics if you're interested in learning a bit more about it. If you don't know what Skillshare is, it's a platform that has thousands of classes relating to art, design, photography, business, etc. And it's a great place to go and explore your passions on your own time with its digestible classes. I recommend Ceramics at Home, Building Dishes by Hand by Emily Reinhard. So it teaches you how to do like basic hand building, which is like attaching 2 pieces of clay together, or the coil method. And another class I recommend is The Art of Ceramics, Creating a Modern Mug by Haldon Levy. And this one is more about creating on a wheel and like throwing clay. So yeah, if you're interested, the first 1,000 people to use my link in my description box or my code will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Thank you again, Skillshare, for sponsoring another video. Up visiting my parents again the following month. So this time when I went over, I was painting glaze onto some of my dad's unfired pieces, and the glaze I used was very different from what I usually see. And my dad said that you can only buy this type of glaze in Taiwan, but it was pretty much like a watercolor palette that worked pretty much the same, except it demands a lot more water because it dried instantly. Like you have to constantly have a little bit of water just like in the watercolor because it'll just be bone dry really fast. I think this method was like a good introduction to drawing on ceramics though, because I felt a little bit less scared with this watercolor type glaze. It felt very familiar and it also went on very light, so if I messed up I could technically wipe it off, but I did. The only problem is that like I had to layer it many times to get it really dark, and to be honest I have no idea how it's gonna turn out once it's fired. It looks very cute now unfired, so I took a lot of videos and pictures, but my dad had told me to do a very simple design for the first one because he had no idea how those glazes would fire, and he didn't want me to spend many hours on it just to be like disappointed with the outcome, which this seems like a huge lesson to learn with ceramics because I always see my friends work hours and hours on projects only to have the firing process ruin the piece. So there's a lot of trial and error in this medium before figuring out the sweet spot. And I could see that my dad sometimes was very unhappy with the way that his ceramics turned out, even though I think it's beautiful. And so when he was saying how he messed up here, messed up there, I taught him the whole concept of Wabi Sabi, which is pretty much like to see the uncontrollable imperfections as beauty. And I definitely see that beauty in his work of like, even though it's his first time firing by himself, it's still beautiful, even if parts of it are imperfect. The imperfection is the beauty of the work, and that's what makes handmade things so beautiful.
Hmm? 怎么有一个凹？
我也不知道，可能弄的时候，反正凹的也不错嘛。
At least 它整边都是。
对啊，一圈，那也不错。
Wabi Sabi。I'm on my way to the ceramic supply store with my dad right now. He wants to show me like where he gets all his materials, and I'm kind of excited.
I ended this trip back home with a visit to my dad's favorite ceramic shop. It's his favorite because there's literally no other ceramic shop close to home, and I was able to see a lot of different types of tools and clays and powders that I had no idea what it was used for, but my dad was able to explain a lot to me, and I felt like I gained a lot of knowledge through him about ceramics.
所以每一个可以喷上去你湿的 glaze， 还是这就是湿的？
这个是湿的，这个是干的，这个就是你要回去拿水去 mix。
这个也很漂亮，这是蓝色的。哦，这个很漂亮。
And although he is still very much a beginner because he's only taken one class and has only fired once, I can already see like how dedicated he is to this craft and how he's just excelling at it so fast because he has a true passion for it. And I can't wait to feel that fire again for my own art and for my own craft. Hopefully I'll be able to go back more often and visit and make more things, and maybe one day, if I get confident enough, maybe there will be a collaboration where I can actually sell some ceramic pieces that we make together. But for now, please enjoy the pictures, and I would also like to thank my patrons for being so supportive and for keeping me alive and well while I explore my other creative passions, and for allowing me to have this time to do things that make me happy. Enough sappiness. I'll see you next time. Bye.